This spring I asked Ryan to build me a greenhouse. In our area of New England, it stays cold well into the spring. Sometimes as late as May, middle of May, we can still get frosts. And so to grow some of the crops that we want to have, we really have to have a greenhouse to start them. So tomatoes, peppers, squash, and several other items, we will start early in the greenhouse. And that allows us on very cold nights to use a heater to keep it warm, and during the day it gets into the 70s, 80s, and sometimes even 90s when it's still only 40 or 50 degrees outside. It gives us a huge jump on our starts for the year. And while we can plant carrots, beets, and peas and things of that nature straight into the garden, if we did that with our tomatoes and other warmer climate plants, we wouldn't ever get them to ripen in time so that we could harvest them. So we'll have you come in a little bit closer, and Ryan will tell you a little bit more about the construction. This was based off of a greenhouse that we saw Justin Rhodes build on his channel, but it is a scaled down version.
All right, so we're inside here, and I want to go over some of the actual things we did, measurements, dimensions, why we did what we did. Then we'll take you outside and we'll go over a few more just to wrap this up. One of the things I will point out is if you do projects, you're always going to have scrap stuff laying around. And one of the cool things I saw, like on watching Justin Rhodes, is he makes these little trays out of plywood and 2x4s, and it makes it very easy to put all your starts in. You can actually start them right in here. They fit in here nice like this. Then you can pick it up and take it outside to harden it, and then you can carry it to the garden. So we've built a bunch of those out of scraps. But one of the things we did is we used some cedar to build a bench all the way around to set stuff on. There's really no right or wrong way to what you do here. The goal is to have some kind of polycarbonate plastic panels that let the sunlight in to heat the thing up. You need a roof structure to hold that on. We ended up doing like a gambrel. And what we did is we went 3 feet tall on our walls down here on the outside, so that a single sheet of galvanized metal roofing would come up to the joint right here. And then we went 3 feet on this wall as well. And that way a piece of metal roofing, a plastic roofing would come right to here. So there's an actual seam in the roofing right in here. And then we went 3 feet up here as well. So the goal was to be able to kind of make even sheets of material fit. We laid our material lengthwise, horizontal instead of vertical like you'd normally do with roofing material. The only negative to that at all is that on the polycarbonate panels we have, our local supplier has seconds that are very, very reasonable, and they come about 8 feet long. So we just overlapped, a couple feet on that polycarbonate panel. So in a hard rain in the summer, some rain will drip down in, as you see coming off my finger there, but it's a very slow drip, and it's very acceptable to us because, well, it's a greenhouse. It waters the plants, so we don't worry about it. You could order the polycarbonate panels in a longer length. You could actually strap this and go the other way. But if you've watched Justin Rhodes, and we'll try to find a link to that and leave it down below, but if you've watched his video on his greenhouse, one of the things they did is they took the screws out of this polycarbonate panel up part way, and they were able to roll that panel up in the summer and let it ventilate. We will end up putting vents in the ends as well next spring when it gets hot in here. But there is some benefit to going that way. So we went 8 feet wide and we went 12 feet long. The basic reason for 12 feet long was because that's a 2x4. That's the length of a 2x4. The 8 feet wide, again, was just kind of to keep the angles the way we want them. You could make it 12 feet wide, but your roof structure would have to be a little longer. Your panels would have to overlap a little bit more. It's all a balance in what you're looking for. It's amazing at how many of these trays you can fit in this little space. It's amazing how many plants go in one tray. So in a nutshell, that's what we did. We've got we dug into the ground a little bit, and we put a 4x4 pressure treated sill all the way around, 4 sides. We half lapped the corners of the pressure treated to start, and then we put our 2x4s every 2 feet onto that, and we put a top plate of 2x4 on top of those 2x4s to build like a traditional wall, basically. So there's a 3 foot tall wall. It's not quite 3 feet. It's 3 feet from the bottom of the treated to up here, so that the metal can go down and lap onto the treated. So you want to keep in mind your dimensions of your material. Order your metal, have it here, measure it. Our metal roofing measures about 37.5 inches from side to side. So we went from the bottom of the treated 4x4 to the top of the plate. We went about 39 inches because we want to leave a little treated exposed outside. And then we just filled the ends in. We did use plywood. I'm not sure if you can see like this gusset here. We used basically scraps of plywood to make gussets to put our rafters together. So how we did that is before we did any of the walls, we had our treated 4x4s down. We actually figured out roughly how long we wanted the rafters to be, and we laid the rafters on the 4x4s in 4 pieces to make these 4 different pieces. And when we overlap them like that, then all you got to do is you got to go in and mark where the 2 overlap on both sides, connect those dots, and you cut them, and now you figured out your angle. So it's pretty straightforward if you work on that. Mark your pattern, you know, bottom, top. Use one pattern to cut all your pieces. And then what we did is we set up a jig on the wooden floor where we could drop these 2 pieces into them so they were always the same, and then we screwed these gussets on. So pretty straightforward there. We did put a couple collar ties in that allow the building not to spread if it gets a lot of snow load on it. Depending on your climate, if you're in a warmer climate where there's not a lot of snow load, you could go wider and you don't have to worry so much about this. The northern climates like us, it's nothing to get 3 or 4 feet of snow, so we have to build a little more structurally sound. We talked about the bench. We do have some more exterior work to do. On the door, we still have to come back and put a stop on the door and some weather stripping. The door doesn't fit real tight right now. We built this actually into the summer this year. We were a little bit behind building this, so we haven't got it completely weatherproof for, you know, coming into the winter for next spring. So we're going to go outside. We're going to show you around some on the outside, show you what we did, what we've got left to do, and go from there. All right, so now we're outside, and you'll see what I mean by running the metal horizontally. So this piece of metal here is 12 feet long, and you'll notice there's a little bit of the treated sill hanging out below. We want to leave a little exposed so the metal's not setting right in the ground. We have some trim inside that we haven't put on yet that caps the corner. And then basically we just overlapped our polycarbonate onto the metal and ran that horizontally as well, and then we overlapped another layer of polycarbonate on this one. If you're worried about wind getting under that, we put a lot of screws in it. You could always put a bead of clear silicone in there. We haven't had any problem with that. And yeah, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We're going to have to cut this ridge cap off, and we're going to put our trim on to cover these raw ends. We did put the foam closures in everywhere to stop any, you know, wind from blowing through. That really seals it up. And yeah. That's pretty much it. So if anybody's got any questions, leave them down below. I can answer, you know, dimensions, size, material. Feel free to ask. We'll answer those questions for you. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.